Välkommen alla sammen. The Norse view on abortion in the religious beliefs. I did not want to do this, but you guys have been bugging me for a year about this. I finally decided to do it today because about 20 of you messaged me. I don't have an opinion on any of this because it's none of my business. That's the first thing. Though I appreciate the views of both sides, I really don't care and I don't have that strong of opinions on it. But we're not here to speak about me. We're here to speak about the Norse religion, as most of you watching are a part of. What would the view on abortion have been in the Viking Age? Because they actually did have a view on it, and the answer is they thought it was okay. The same thing would have happened all over in all countries in Scandinavia in the Viking Age, but we have specific records of it in Iceland happening. When Christianity came into Iceland and they were, forcing Christian law on the country, and they had agreed to become Christian finally, they agreed to do so on only two conditions, and that's that they would get to keep two of their most important pagan customs that were illegal in Christian tradition. First one is they would be allowed to eat horse meat. Don't ask me why, long story. But the second one is that they would be allowed to expose their children. Now what that was, if a child was born sick or deformed or crippled, something like that, just like Ivar the Boneless, then they would be acceptable to leave that kid out in the wild, in the nature, to die. This was apparently so important to them that they had to keep it above all over pagan traditions that became illegal. Now, we have sources of this all around Europe. We all did this type of thing. The Spartans and the Romans did it. You guys know that. We have some evidence that the Anglo-Saxons did it and the Celts, but probably we all did this practice, as cruel as it may be. We all did it if we go back far enough in our history. It's an Indo-European tradition. So yeah, of course, I'm not saying I believe in this. That's definitely not okay and definitely illegal today, no matter what state you're in. Post-birth abortion is what they did. It's infanticide, which is wrong in today's standards, but back then they viewed it as so important. So that's the view on it in the Norse religion. Of course, these things aren't applicable to today, but what we can learn today from is that this is a matter of religious belief, and I think both sides have kind of failed to understand the other side when it comes to that. Most of the conservatives who are against abortion today are Christian, but in the Christian belief, it's murder, right? You are born once, you are created by God, and when you die, you go to the afterlife, okay? That's fine, that's Christian belief. But people forget that there are a lot of other religions in the world that don't believe in the life after death like that. The Norse, and also every other pre-Christian religion in Europe, if we go back far enough, believes in reincarnation. I did a video on all those sources that you can watch here if you haven't seen it already. So in the Norse beliefs, it would have not been viewed as murder. Now, after the child was baptized, there was a baptism ritual actually too. It was called vatni ausin, and that was when they sprinkled a newborn baby with water, gave it a name, and welcomed it into society. And after that, the child could no longer be exposed. But before that, it was totally normal, although we don't know how common it was, but we do know it was one of their most important spiritual practices that they had to keep. And this isn't because they like to do this, but this is because when you believe in reincarnation, you believe that the spirit of one of your grand, noble ancestors is being reborn in this baby's body. If that baby is born sick or deformed or crippled like Ivar the Boneless, then it is not only acceptable to leave that baby out to die, but it's also viewed as an ethical and the right thing to do in the Viking Age. Just like Ragnar, you saw on the TV show, tried to leave out Ivar, but his mom came and rescued him after that. This is what was done back then, and it wasn't viewed as anything cruel back then. They weren't just some heartless barbarians. It was just a different religious view, and if that body is crippled or sick or whatever, something that child is not going to have a good life. It was viewed as an ethical act to let that spirit pass back into the realm of the dead and come back reborn, give it a chance to be reborn in a healthy body. So, like I said, I don't say I agree with all that. I have no opinions on any of this stuff that has been happening this week with the Supreme Court stuff. Just saying that there are different religious views on this issue, and people need to realize that and remember that. And also, they need to respect the other side. Both sides need to do this, right? If you want to know the true Viking, the true Norse way of looking at issues like this, it's don't force your beliefs on other people, okay? No pagan ever, possibly in the history of the world, but I know for sure there is no pagan that has ever tried to force their beliefs on others in the Norse sources that we have. I just don't know of any of that. What they do have, however, is you were expected to respect the customs and traditions of the place you were staying. The Christian king, Håkon the Good, actually, which is my favorite king of all time, Håkon the Good, he was a son of Harald Fairhair. He was raised in England as a Christian. He was raised by King Athelstan. He came to Norway, people loved him, and he was basically elected to be king of Norway, even though he was Christian and the whole country was pagan. But one day when he was at one of the biggest sacrifices and holy festivals of the pagan tradition, he was expected to participate even though he didn't want to. He was a Christian and he wanted to basically not participate in some of the rituals, but the men got mad and they expected him to do this. They weren't trying to convert him, they weren't forcing their beliefs on his. They elected him king even though he was Christian and they loved him. They didn't try to convert him back into paganism, but what they did expect was they expected him to partake in the traditions and the culture of the native land that they were in. We have other sources like that, like the sacrifices that happened at Uppsala. There were some Christian chieftains and noblemen at the time, even though most of the country was still pagan. They lived peacefully, they did everything. They did not try and force their pagan views on any of the Christians, but what they did was, again, at this major yearly festival, very important in the religion, if they weren't going to come, if the Christian chieftains weren't going to come there, they had to basically pay a fine to be exempt from coming to this festival. So that's all, and that's basically my advice for any people who are having a hard time with the judgments and Supreme Court stuff that is going on. You know, respect people's beliefs from both sides, and you know, if there are certain places that have a view on abortion that you don't like, maybe that's not the right place for you. If I was a lady and I really wanted an abortion, but I lived right in the middle of the really religious community in the South, that's probably not the place for me, okay? Guess what? If you're a very Christian person and you don't agree with abortion, but you're living in a place like New York or California, then that's probably not a great place to you if you have abortion clinics just down the street from your house. So that's all I can say. That would be the Norse views on abortion and what they would do if they had to live together with people who had different ideas than them. So that's all I have to say about that issue. I just wanted to say that because you guys have been bugging me about it for a year now, but I've made it and I don't really want to speak about it again. So that's all for today. Vi ses nästa gång.